Show. Hope you enjoyed our special tribute to John Lennon this morning. 2.5 hours of Lennon tunes. We could go another 2.5 hours easily.
Oh, easily. That was excellent. I have to give you a big old pat on the back for that.
And it's also Jim Morrison's birthday today. We want to pay a special tribute to Jim Morrison. As a matter of fact, we're going to call up Ray Manzarek right now, the keyboardist from The Doors. He's expecting our call, so let's give him a call.
Hello.
Ray.
Yes.
Hey, good morning, bro. What's up?
I am.
I got to tell you right off the bat, I've been a lifelong Doors fan.
Well, thank you, man.
From day one, and this is really a pleasure getting to talk with you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the Laserdisc that's coming out, too. We've been talking about it. I've talked to a few friends of mine that have some inside info, I guess you might say.
Well, the Laserdisc is very exciting. It's a 2-disc set, and what's great about Laserdisc, it's like an old album. It's 12 by 12. It's a big thing. It's a big double gatefold album, and you pick up this thing, and it's really substantial. You open it up, and it's like, wow, man, it's a double disc. It's like a John Coltrane record on the Impulse for any of you jazz cats out there. And the Laserdisc has Dance on Fire, Live at the Hollywood Bowl, The Soft Parade, and about an hour of new supplemental, as they call them in the Laserdisc, supplemental material. It's got Robbie Krieger playing a kind of a jazz version of The End with a couple of jazz cats, Bruce Gary and a drummer and a bass player who used to play with Frank Zappa.
Wow.
And then it's got John Densmore's excerpts from his one-man show that he does based on his book. Whatever that book is called. What's that book called?
Riders on the Storm.
Riders on the Storm, exactly. So he does, about 10 minutes excerpt from the one-man show that he does. I have 2 of my UCLA student movies in there. So you actually get to see Ray Manzarek and Jim Morrison. It's a brief little sequence with Jim Morrison in it from UCLA before the Doors even got started. Actually, before we even talked about the Doors, before we even conceived of the Doors.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, there's Jim and Ray together. What's great about Laserdisc is when you freeze the frame and stop it, I mean, it's just perfect. There's no lines going through it. And you say, man, that's Morrison. There's Morrison and Manzarek. Look at them.
Sure.
And they don't look like rock and rollers, and we didn't, I mean, we were film students, college guys.
Right.
And then there's a bunch of memorabilia in there, all kinds of stuff. The guy that's the head of the Doors fan club narrates a tour through all kinds of singles from around the world and posters and some Doors things, and you can see Jim's actual first published, self-published books of poetry. The Doors demo, the original Doors demo is there. You can see that.
Wow.
And Jim's dictionary that I still have. I still use Jim's dictionary. When he left for Paris, he left his dictionary. Obviously, didn't take that with him to Paris. Left it on his desk, and I said, hey, I need a dictionary, man. I'll take this dictionary. So there's Jim's dictionary with a UCLA student store stamp on the inside. And then a photo session that Henry Diltz takes us through. We did a photo session with Henry Diltz, noted rock photographer, in, 69. I guess it was 1969 for the Morrison Hotel album. And
right.
We walk around Venice, and there's all these stills, and Henry's just clicking them off and telling you where we are and what we're doing. And I play piano behind it.
Well, Ray, you just mentioned the Doors demos, and we have some of the Doors demos right here on 98.7 FM, The Gator.
Now once I had a little game, I like to crawl back in my brain. I think you know the game I mean. Well, I mean the game. Stop going insane! Oh! Park beside the ocean on our moonlight drive. Our summer's almost gone. Tell me
really strange, those early Doors demos. And Ray, when is the last time you actually spoke with Jim?
In 1971, unfortunately. I haven't talked to him since then, you know. If he's not gone, you know, if he hasn't gone into the energy, into the ether, then he's hiding out real well, because I haven't talked to him since 71. But I talked to him 2 days before he left for Paris. It was like March, I suppose, middle of March in 1971. We were finishing up the L.A. Woman album and had like 2 songs left to mix. And Jim said, well, everything sounds great here, man. It's all in control. Why don't you guys go ahead and finish up the next 2, because I'm going off to Paris. And we said, cool, man, Paris. Hey, what a good idea. Get out of Los Angeles. Get away from all those drinking buddies and those kind of hanger-ons, like, you know, the way Elvis had his hanger-ons, so did Jim, man.
Right.
Those guys are invariably ne'er-do-wells who are always leading you down the path of excess, you know.
Sure.
So I thought that was the best thing in the world, man. Jim was going to go off and meet Pam in Paris and work on his poems and work on his writing and, you know, just get his head together and, you know, get away from being a rock and roll star and just get back to being a poet and an artist again. And we all said, fabulous, man, fabulous. So off he went, and Densmore talked to him on the phone a couple of months later, sometime in June, and Jim said, how's the album doing? And John said, man, it's doing great. People love it, say the Doors are back, energy is stronger than ever. And Morrison said, well, that's great, man. As soon as I get back from Paris, let's get out on the road and play. He said, I want to play again.
Wow.
And so he was all excited about L.A. Woman, and man, that was the last time anybody ever heard from him.
Wow. When is the first time you heard about Jim's death?
Maybe 3rd, maybe 4th, July 4th. Probably the 4th of July, you know. The next day. I heard about it the next day. Bill Siddons, this guy was our manager, called us, and each one of us called me and John and Robbie, and he said, I got some bad news. Jim is dead. Wow. I said, get out of here, man. You know, that was the time when Paul is Dead was going around, you know, with the Beatles album, The Last Abbey Road. Paul's walking across the street out of step and barefoot.
Right.
And it means that when you're barefoot, you're dead. In Italy, that's the way they bury a corpse, so therefore Paul is actually dead. So something was going on in people's minds about people dying. So, you know, I didn't believe it. I said, get out of here. I've heard this story of Morrison being dead 3 or 4 times already. Died in an automobile accident. We're at a party. Here's a perfect example. We're at a party. Jim is supposed to be there. He's not there. The rest of us are there. Someone comes running in and says, Morrison's dead. He died in an automobile accident. Everyone goes, oh, my God, oh, no, oh, no. 5 minutes later, in walks Jim Morrison. I said, hey, wait a minute. I thought you were dead. He said, no. Rumors of my death have been greatly exaggerated. Well, yeah, so this is another example of that. I thought, oh man, he's not gone. But so this guy Siddons went off to Paris to check it out, and 4 days later, he called me and said, well, we buried him in something called Père Lachaise Cemetery. I said, you buried him? You mean, first of all, it's not a rumor. Second of all, he is dead. And third of all, I mean, you just buried him? What happened? And this guy said, I don't know. I said, what do you mean you don't know? I said, well, his heart stopped. I said, his heart stopped? Well, how did he look? And Siddons said, I don't know. I never saw the body. I said, what are you talking about? He said, it was a sealed coffin. And I said, you buried a sealed coffin and you never saw Jim Morrison dead? And he said, well, I know he was in there because everyone was all upset. I said, man, this is Jim. You know, you got to say, hey, open the coffin. Let me see Jim Morrison dead, you know.
Right.
It's like Doubting Thomas who said, you know, unless I put my hand in Jesus' wound, I'm not going to believe that it's him when he was risen from the dead. I said, well, this is the same trip. And you got to see that Morrison is dead. Look at the man's body. And he said, well, I don't know. I said, you know, they could put 150 pounds of bricks in there and buried that thing, and no one would be the wiser. An Algerian doctor signs a death certificate saying what? His heart stopped. I mean, what's that, you know?
Right.
His heart stopped. Of course his heart stopped. He's dead. What caused it? So that's the story, man. That's the story that we all know. And, you know, Pam is the only one who could dispute that story, and Pam is no longer with us. She's with Jim in heaven.
All right. You remember when we were in Africa?
98.7 FM, The Gator. It's the Oliver Quest Morning Show. Seabass and Gloria. And on the phone with us, we have Ray Manzarek, the keyboardist, the original keyboardist for The Doors. And Ray, of course, we were talking about Jim's death over there in Paris. And did you talk to Pam after she returned to the States?
Yes, I did. But, man, I couldn't ask her. I mean, I saw her, and she came up to me. We hugged each other, and she just started crying.
I can imagine.
You know, and what could I say? Okay, Pam, stop crying now. Now, tell me the facts. What exactly happened here? You know, like a lawyer grilling a witness, man. I mean, you know, I'm holding Pam in my arms, and she's just weeping. Oh, Ray. So, you know, it was impossible. It was an impossible situation to try to ask her. And then I saw her a couple more times, and I mean, she was just so broken up and distraught that, you know, I had to think that, yeah, of course, Jim is gone. You know, she'd be with him or something, you know, or she wouldn't be crying like this if it had been a staged death.
Right.
So, you know, on the other hand, man, who knows? You know, if anybody could have pulled a stunt like that off, Morrison was the guy who could have pulled it off.
Is everybody in? Is everybody in? Is everybody in? The ceremony is about to begin. Wake up! Is every number where it was? Has history stopped?
A military station in the desert.
She was a princess, queen of the highway.
98.7 FM Decatur. It's the All Request Morning Show. We're paying a special tribute to Jim Morrison. It would have been his birthday today.
Out of trade.
News from 98.7 FM, The Gator. All Request Morning Show from the classic rock station, 98.7 FM, The Gator.
It's a couple minutes past 9 with Seabass and Gloria. We have Ray Manzarek on the phone with us. I'm telling you what, it is a busy day. We're doing a special tribute to Jim Morrison. It would have been his 51st birthday today. And Ray, I keep hearing these bizarre reports that French officials want Morrison's grave moved, perhaps even back to the States.
Well, is that weird? Yeah.
That is really
Well, you know what's happened? It's not so much that they want to return it to the States. What's happened is that Jim's is being evicted from the cemetery. The Père Lachaise Cemetery, we sent Pam money, and unfortunately she only used a portion of it. She bought a 30-year lease on the cemetery plot and used the rest of it for the habits that eventually did her in.
So they don't want to renew the lease?
They're not going to renew Jim's lease. His lease is up, and they're throwing him out of the cemetery for unsightly conduct, for mayhem, chaos, and disorder.
See, that's incredible.
There is too much trouble going on at the grave site, and the families all around Jim's grave have petitioned the cemetery and said, we don't want him in here. So the authorities said, okay, he's out. He's evicted. So, 30 years after his death, they're going to dig him up. And I don't know exactly what's going to happen with him. Maybe he'll come back to the States. Maybe the president of Czechoslovakia, or the Czech Republic now, Václav Havel, is a poet and writer, and he said, please bring Morrison here. We'll take him in Prague. There's a poet's corner in a famous cemetery in Prague, and Kafka is buried there. So they want him to go. And I think that'd be terrific, because Jim was a big fan of Franz Kafka, the writer,
sure,
and who wrote The Castle and The Trial and a lot of other good things. Crazy, wild guy from the 20s. So it's possible that Jim may go to Prague to be buried next to Kafka, Or who knows, man, a military station in the desert. You know, like he says in American Prayer, a military station in the desert. I don't know where he's going.
Officials at the Paris cemetery, where Jim Morrison was buried in 1971, have had enough. The lease on his gravesite doesn't expire until the year 2001, but they want Morrison's body to be moved to a new resting place right away to stop the endless graffiti, used syringes and empty bottles left behind by pilgrimaging fans. One option is to ship him home to America, but remaining Doors members Ray Manzarek, John Densmore and Robbie Krieger are against the idea and have appealed to the authorities to leave their old chum where he is, allowed like the bodies of other departed souls to rest in peace.
Following me. Indian, Indian, what did you die for? Indian says nothing at all. Gently they stir, gently rise, the dead or newborn awakening. With ravaged limbs and wet souls, gently they sigh in rapt funeral amazement. Who called these dead to dance? Was it the young woman learning to play the ghost song in her baby grand? Was it the wilderness children? Was it the ghost god himself, stuttering, cheering, chatting blindly? I called you up to anoint the earth. I called you to announce sadness falling like burned skin. I called you to wish you well, to glory in self like a new monster, and now I call on you to pray.
6 minutes past 9. 98.7 FM, The Gator. It's the All Request Morning Show. We have Ray Manzarek on the phone. And Ray, of course, the Beatles just released Lennon's demo version of Free as a Bird. They reworked it. They took his original vocals and provided music underneath. But, of course, the Doors did that with Jim Morrison's poetry years ago.
Well, we did a whole album, yeah.
Yeah, and it's great, too.
We did a whole album in 1970. I think it was released in 77, 78. And it's all of Jim's poetry. All it is Jim's poetry. That's all we had, Jim's voice. Like they had Lennon singing a song. Well, we had Jim reading poetry, so we constructed around his poetry a whole soundscape and musical montage and collage around, playing music to Jim's poetry. So An American Prayer that's the real Jim Morrison. You know, if you're one of the people who thought the movie was bitchin' and that the movie showed Jim Morrison that you love, well, check out the other side of Jim Morrison, the poet, the artist. That's the guy who's on. That's the guy I first met on the beach in Venice. That's the guy we put the Doors together with.
Right.
An American Prayer's got the real poet side of Jim Morrison.
Well, I think American Prayer is absolutely amazing.
Well, thank you, man. Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I love that thing. I love the way it all came together. It was really one of those magic Doors moments. When the Doors get together to do something, it always comes out great, if I do say so. You know, and that album was that was a labor of love. I mean, we did that for Jim. He never had a poetry album, and he always wanted one. And so we said, listen, let's get together and let's do his poetry album for him.
Indians scattered on dawn's highway bleeding, ghosts crowd the young child's fragile eggshell mind.
98.7 FM, The Gator. It's the All Request Morning Show, 10 minutes past 9. Seabass and Gloria, special tribute to Jim Morrison, who would have been 51 today. I have Doors keyboardist, is what I'm trying to say. Ray Manzarek on the phone. And that is just a great song from a great album. That's from American Prayer. And Ray, do you have a favorite Doors album?
Oh, gosh, that's a tough one, you know. I mean, I can think of where we were and what the circumstances were in every recording, you know, from the first album, the existential moments of the first album, and in which we were just alive and crazy, wild and on fire, and Rothschild and Botnick in the recording studio with us, our producer and engineer. And then Strange Days was our laboratory, crazy scientists in the laboratory, and Soft Parade had all those horns and strings and jazz cats and everything. So, God, that's a tough one. L.A. Woman, we recorded right in our own Doors rehearsal studio in the Doors workshop. So,
sure.
Man, I don't know. Maybe L.A. Woman, you know. I mean, I just love that. Riders on the Storm and L.A. Woman. I just remember playing those downstairs at our rehearsal place on the corner of La Cienega and Santa Monica in Los Angeles. That was really great.
Is that building still there, Ray?
It sure is, man. I mean, if anybody's ever in town in Los Angeles, it's now an Italian restaurant. You can go and eat downstairs where the Doors actually recorded L.A. Woman. You can even use the bathroom where Jim would stand and sing, getting that quote-unquote bathroom echo sound.
98.7 FM Decatur, the classic rock station. Seabass and Gloria with the All Request Morning Show. We're paying a special tribute to Jim Morrison and the Doors. 16 minutes past 9, we have Ray Manzarek, the keyboardist of the Doors, on the phone with us. And Ray, when the Doors were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame a few years back, you guys performed live with Eddie Vedder from Pearl Jam, and I thought he sounded great with the Doors.
So did I, man. It was great. Playing with Eddie Vedder was that hot. Eddie's a great singer, you know. He's very Morrison-like. He's got that shaman quality.
Sure.
You know, he wasn't imitating Morrison. He was just, you know, singing Doors songs and doing it his own way. But, boy, that's the closest I've seen anybody come to that kind of strange shaman vibe that Morrison had.
Well, how did you hook up with Eddie?
That's a weird story, man. That comes about through the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame people. Some guys back east, you know, they called us and said, "You're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We want you to play." And we said, yeah, but, you know, we don't have a lead singer. They said, we know. Well, we've been thinking about it. How would you guys like to play with Eddie Vedder? And we said, well, if you can put that together, man, we're there. Sure, we'd love that. He said, well, we already have talked to Eddie, and Eddie said, if it's okay with the Doors, I'd love to do it. So, boom, there it was, man.
Wow.
Simple as that, you know. We got together, we rehearsed 2 times. Eddie knew the songs. I mean, everybody's chops were in shape. Light My Fire. I mean, playing Light My Fire. I hadn't played Light My Fire with John and Robbie in, 20 years, man. We started to play Light My Fire. It was like riding a bicycle. You know, you jump on a bike and boom, you're off and gone. And there we were in the middle of Light My Fire. And I thought, I don't believe this, man. What is this, 1969, 1970? I mean, we're just playing the shit out of this song.
Eddie Vedder on lead vocals. Yeah. Woo! 98.7 FM, The Gator. It's the All Request Morning Show, Seabass and Gloria. And, of course, the one and only Ray Manzarek on keyboards and on the phone with us from the Doors, from the original Doors. And, Ray, how often did you guys get to perform L.A. Woman songs live in concert? Only once or twice, right?
That was it. Those 2 nights. And that was the only time we ever played anything from L.A. Woman. And, we played a bad version of L.A. Woman itself. I mean, the song hadn't even come together yet. We were still working on the structure of the song. But Riders on the Storm was pretty much together, and we played it the way it is on the record. So we only played those 2 songs, and we played Riders on the Storm once or twice, and that was it, man.
Well, check it out. Unbelievable as it may sound, they've only performed those songs twice. We have a couple of copies here of some of the tunes from L.A. Woman that were recorded live from that show in Texas. Someone was in the audience with a handheld recorder, so you have to keep that in mind, okay? This is very old, and it's kind of scratchy, but it's super historical. Check this out. You'll never hear this again.
Well, I think I need a town about an hour ago. Took a look around, see which way the wind blows. Who's a little girl in a Hollywood bungalow?
And I got to tell you, this is the absolute last concert that was recorded with Jim Morrison, the final Jim Morrison show with the Doors.
Like
24 minutes past 9 at the Gator, Seabass Gloria, Ray Manzarek, and they also performed a live version of The Changeling for the first and last time that night in Texas.
downtown.
98.7 FM, The Gator. It's the All Request Morning Show. Special tribute to Jim Morrison. Would have been 51 today. 29 minutes past 9. Sebastian Gloria, Ray Manzarek on the phone. We're going to get back with him in just a couple seconds, and we'll get the lowdown on what really happened at that Miami show, that infamous Miami concert where Morrison was busted for indecent exposure, profanity, beating up the cops, and all kinds of other stuff. And we'll get the straight story from Ray next.
Tonight's Jensen Beach, Fort Pierce, South Vero, and West Vero Beach, where America sees better for less.
33 minutes past 9. Sebastian Gloria, the All Request Morning Show. 98.7 FM, The Gator, the classic rock station. We have Ray Manzarek, the keyboardist for The Doors, on the phone with us. And Ray, everyone's heard about that crazy show in Miami. I've heard 14 million different stories. Now, what really happened?
I don't know, man. Jim was in front of me. Did he pull it out or not? I can't tell. He was slightly in front of me, so I don't know that it ever happened, actually.
Right.
The thing that I think is that we're 200 photographs in evidence at the trial. We're on trial in Miami for obscenity and exposure, drunkenness, and simulation of oral copulation. I mean, that was the one that got me. Simulation of oral copulation. Is there actually a charge? I mean, what kind of law is that? Not doing it, but simulating it.
Right.
And what that was Jim was on his hands and knees in front of Robbie's guitar, kneeling in front of Robbie as Robbie's playing his guitar solo in Light My Fire, and Jim's kind of weaving his hands back and forth in front of Robbie's guitar, mesmerized by the fingers.
Sure.
Somebody saw Jim kneeling in front of Robbie Krieger and said, my God, he's simulating oral copulation. That's what he's doing. He's giving him a you-know-what job.
Well, Jim actually used to do that all the time. I mean, watch Robbie play.
I mean, talk about dirty minds. I mean, these people in Miami, come on. Are you guys insane? This is a charge. So anyway, there are photos of Jim doing that. There are photos of the stage collapsing. There are photos of people being thrown off. There are photos of all of us being splattered with paint. There was somebody was throwing, thank God, it was a water-based paint, like tempera paint or something like that, poster paints. I mean, there's photos of Jim in that crazy hat that some guy gave him, and
right.
There's photos of everything. There is not one single photo of Jim exposing himself. Not one photo in evidence has the ivory shaft in it. And you would think that somebody would have snapped when Jim, if he whipped it out, wouldn't somebody have taken a picture? What did everyone stop in shock and said, there it is, my God, and it was a frozen moment in time? I don't think so. So that's what leads me to believe that it actually never happened,
Well, I got to tell you, Ray, we have to run now. We're a little bit short on time. Have to make way here for Keith Van Allen in about 15 minutes. But I got to tell you, man, on behalf of Gloria and Spinky and Big Cheek Meteorologist and myself, thank you very, very much for taking the time to chat with us this morning. It's been really special.
Everybody down in West Palm Beach, man, and all the, as far as you guys go, the whole Miami area, I suppose, God bless you and have a wonderful Christmas and a happy New Year. And don't forget, we're taking over in the year 2000. It belongs to the lovers. The world belongs to the lovers, and we're going to take this whole thing over and change it into the beautiful planet that it can be. All right?
All right, Ray.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okie doke. Bye-bye.